something broken inside of me. It doesn't matter how hard I try, I can't forget about all the times I cried myself to sleep.
Hey, welcome back for another episode of Fight or Flight. This is Dave, and as promised, we have a special guest on the show tonight. This is Officer Delos Santos with the Kaysville Police Department, and he's here to talk to us tonight about his job and how it affects him mentally, and a couple of things that he's gone through in the course of carrying out his job. Josh, you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, first off, thanks for having me. Really, really inspiring the stuff that you're doing with this channel, so glad to be a part of it. I'm a second generation officer, so typically what that means someone in your family has been in the profession for quite some time. So my wife would tell you I was bred for it. So just kind of growing up, it was already kind of intertwined with me as far as what I was getting into, just being exposed to this profession at a younger age, and I got that itch to like want to go out and help people, and it was just a good time for me, seeing my dad do it, and then now I'm able to be on the working side of things instead of the family side of law enforcement. So yeah, I'm married, got a kid, doing my own thing now.
Nice. So, my next question was actually going to be, how about your profession as a law enforcement officer? What made you choose that career path? So, obviously, you explained, family. It's kind of you were bred for it. I've met your father, big guy, definitely big guy, and he's been in it for a while.
Mm-hmm.
If I could find a picture of him, I'll probably put it up for the channel to see. But with your job, you enjoy your job?
Oh yeah. I mean, there's definitely I would compare it to like any other profession. You have good days, bad days. Unfortunately, if it's a bad day for me, it means someone's either died or it's been a really really traumatic situation. For me though, before I even went to the academy, I tried for a year to get away from the profession itself. And I was pursuing software engineering at the time. I had everything lined up, had a job coming into place, and then I call it the itch in my back. I had to scratch it, and it got too annoying to the point where I couldn't not go out and answer the call to serve. So
Kaysville's lucky to have you. I can only imagine it's pretty stressful these days to be in law enforcement. It seems like you guys are constantly under the microscope and questioned for literally every decision you make.
Yeah, no, you're 100% accurate on that. Fortunately, being a second generation officer, I've been able to see the development between how policing used to be and now the new upcoming change and what law enforcement is doing with the community, the changes as far as the different laws that are coming across the states, things like that. And it's been interesting. I've been fortunate to be able to have that opportunity to see the difference between the two. For me myself, I got one of the other reasons why I got in this profession was I wanted to set a better example, because yes, there were multiple officers that were doing things for the wrong reasons.
Bad apples.
Yeah, bad apples. And just because of one bad apple, we get the whole bunch is bad, which is not the case. I wanted to set that example, as be something different to show to the public and those of them out there helping, like, no, we're not all like that. We're all human. We make mistakes, but at the end of the day, we're just like everybody else.
I've explained that so many times to people that there are a couple bad apples out there, but in general, the job you guys do is just amazing. And I mean, for the pay that you guys get, putting your life on the line every day and doing it because you're choosing to do it, no other reason, because that's, what you want to do. Really, it's very selfless. It's amazing, and it's very much appreciated. Um, so when it comes to a traffic stop, what's it like when you have a routine traffic stop?
I remember the first one that I did, just coming straight off the academy. It was very like you go through all these scenarios in the academy, and it's always like you always get worried that someone's going to shoot at you because that's kind of what the scenario ends up being. And it's great training in that part. However, real life, not the same thing. I remember going up and it was just a huge adrenaline dump. Just it's like holy crap! Like I had to figure out, okay, I got to turn my lights on. I got to make sure traffic's clear. I got to make sure that this person I'm pulling over is actually pulling over in a safe spot. Is there anybody else that's behind? If I get in a shooting, what's my backdrop? Like all these things go through your head as far as how can I still protect the public but still do a job, kind of thing.
All in a matter of
All within a matter of seconds.
seconds.
Yes. So I remember doing that, a huge adrenaline dump. I remember, talking to this person and I was like, fumble all my words. I was like stuttering and trying to figure out because I couldn't control my excitement and adrenaline because like, holy cow, I'm actually doing this real life. And fortunately, the person I pulled over was very generous and kind of gave me a little bit of a break as far as like, okay, they were nice to me. There are those times where they're the opposite, and it's, I have to.
You're being recorded. What's your badge number?
Yeah,
I'm not gonna roll down my window. Am I being detained?
Pretty much, yeah. And
Yeah.
my reply to some of those too. It's just like this: if you're recording me, just make sure you get my good side. This is it on one side, and all this other stuff. So I mean, I try to make
flex
it
a little tricep.
I try to make it a little it's not a crime to record us because everybody should know nowadays with all YouTube videos and stuff like that. Every cop's got a camera on them, and you're always going to be recorded regardless. It's one for both our safeties, for the public and for the officer, mainly because, say, if an incident happens and the officer's in the wrong, unfortunately, that camera is going to be benefiting for the public to make sure that that officer that did that critical error that was against the law, that broke the law, is held accountable. I say this all the time, is that us as law enforcement officers, we should be held to a higher standard as far as
Very much
enforcing the law, not being hypocritical about some of these things. I mean, there's some things that I do on my patrolling days, as far as on the street, where if I do it in my own personal car, why would I pull somebody over for something that I do? I kind of look at it like that. Will I have an education moment if I need to pull that person over? Yeah, absolutely. But am I going to punish them for it? More than likely not.
It's more like a letter of the law versus a
And that's the one thing I've very much loved with how policing still is right now. They still give us the discretion, and it is so important to have that in this field because it still allows us to have that human entity to it and have that relationship with somebody. In fact, a traffic stop pulled a lady over for speeding in the school zone, and she was cooking. Pulled her over. Before I even got out of the car, I could see that she was looking at me in her rearview mirror and just bawling, just crying.
Oh.
I'm like, oh no, like I just ruined her day or whatever. So I go up there, I start talking to her, and I find out she's single mom, currently going to Weber State for nursing program to become a nurse. She's got her finals coming up. She's, trying to make sure her kids are getting a proper education at this really good school in Kaysville that I recommend for anyone. She just you could tell the stress level and anxiety with her was so high. And I had that opportunity where I could make a difference and be like, hey, I understand that you were speeding today. I'm not going to worry about that. Like, are you okay? And we, I warned her about the traffic offense that she made, but at the same time, I said, you're free to go, but if you need to talk right now, I'm happy to talk with you. And she's thanked me for it after. Like, I will remember you because of what this was. And that in itself, if I have one experience like that in a day, I can go home happy.
And you're representing the rest of law enforcement when you do something like that as well, because you're potentially changing her view in general of what it's like to interact with you guys in a situation like that, which is awesome. So you're pretty well known in the public and amongst other officers these days for not one but two situations where you use your vehicle to intercept a wrong way driver on the highway.
Yeah.
And it's my understanding you were also involved in a life-saving incident regarding a chainsaw injury back in September of 2022.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm going to read a quick announcement given by the Kaysville Police Department dated June 5th of 2023.
Okay.
And then you can comment on that. But let's see. So the announcement I actually found posted on Kaysville's Police Department Facebook page, and it says, congratulations to Officer Delos Santos, who received both the Medal of Valor and Life-Saving Award at this year's award banquet ceremony. In recognition for Officer Delos Santos's exemplary service and actions taken on April 15th of 2022, while on patrol, Officer Delos Santos responded to a wrong-way driver traveling northbound in the southbound lanes of the I-15. The suspect vehicle had eluded other law enforcement attempts to stop it and was heading towards Kaysville. At a great risk to himself, Officer Delos Santos was able to locate the wrong-way driver on the I-15 and stop the vehicle while using a pit maneuver. Through his courageous actions, he was able to prevent a high-speed head-on collision that would have undoubtedly resulted in the loss of lives. In recognition for the life-saving actions taken by Officer Delos Santos on April 15th of 2022. On September 28th of 2022, it's actually my birthday, Officer Delos Santos was dispatched to a traumatic injury call where a citizen had accidentally cut themselves with a chainsaw. Upon arrival, Officer Delos Santos observed large amounts of blood from the injury, which was sustained to the victim's upper thigh. Officer Delos Santos summoned a medical helicopter and was able to stop the bleeding by applying 2 tourniquets to the wound. His quick thinking and decisive actions saved the citizen's life. His actions are a credit to himself and the Kaysville Police Department. Care to comment on that?
Yeah, this is, if you were to ask any of my supervisors or people that I work with, what I think about the recognition and these medals and things that come my way, I am extremely humbled to receive that. Don't get me wrong. There are some that would think that's why I do the job, is to get that kind of recognition, which is not the case.
Mm-hmm.
To be quite honest, I wouldn't change anything if I didn't get those recognitions or awards. Every time my name has been mentioned or something's come up, it's been, extremely humbling, mainly because, I think about my guys that were also on those incidences with me. I was the primary officer responding to that incident, but there's also, a couple of my good buddies and partners that I was with that, should also have been highlighted, in my opinion, in those things. But yeah, that chainsaw incident, I remember it just like today, I felt so bad for the older guy because he's the typical like, yeah, my wife told me not to do this and I went out and did it anyway kind of thing. And you know, he when I got there, I thought for sure that I was going to lose him because of my prior experiences with coming across dead bodies and stuff, and the amount of blood that he lost.
Oh yeah, the thigh is. It's a
It
major
was
spot.
in that spot where it was not good, and um, you know, I could tell that he had already tried to put a makeshift tourniquet on for himself with his belt, but
Hmm.
it wasn't tight enough because he wasn't didn't have the strength.
How old was he?
Oh, probably I'd say late 50s, early 60s. So,
Gotcha.
you know, young enough to still go out and handle his yard, but not to the case where the skin where it was pretty critical. But yeah, I remember, you know, going through that. And then actually, I believe he had commented on our Facebook page after that had been posted and like thanking myself and medical for doing that stuff. And it's really surreal. Like when you see helicopters come in, like in movies and stuff, nothing can compare to actually trying to land a helicopter in
Hmm.
a safe, secure spot and how much actually goes on with it.
In a neighborhood, was it?
Yeah. So the safest spot we were able to get it was fortunately there was a church parking lot that was just west of his house, and we were able to do a hot load from the ambulance to that chopper once we got it landed there safely. So it was pretty convenient. If we had to land it in that little cul-de-sac, these pilots,
Hmm.
they are so trained and very like accurate on where they're at. So yeah, I had no issues or no question that if we needed to get it in that small secluded area, that the chopper could be right there, but in front of his house. So it was just safer for the neighbors and other public when we were thinking of a better landing zone for them. So yeah, that wrong way call.
I'm gonna hold you on that really quick. So we're gonna play a quick video of what occurred on April 15th of 2022 with the wrong way driver before diving into this a bit further. So what happened from your perspective on the night of April 15th, 2022 during the first incident that you had with the oncoming driver?
Uh, I remember it was one of those nights, and it was about the time where Utah Highway Patrol was having a very hard time getting people to for staffing. At that time, there was only one trooper in the county at about 1, 2 o'clock till the morning shift came into play, and it was stressful to a point because I could tell with the lack of bodies for partners to take additional calls on the highway. I could tell it was pretty heavy stress for them. But I remember when that call came out. I remember the trooper responding to it. It was coming in from the south end, um, and I just had a feeling to go, sit by the freeway. What a lot of people don't know is before my shift that day is I had a moment. It's kind of routine. It's something I do every day when I go get ready for work. But I remember this very clear thought in my head. You need to remember this time with your family. You need to remember this time with, you know, your boy. Remember their look, what they say, what they do. And it was kind of scary to a point where I was like, why is this so clear in my brain? Like it was just like as we're talking now. And I remember just kind of going through the motions throughout, and sat in my car, getting ready to go, and both my wife and my son were sitting outside the door, and I got that very clear, voice again, like, "Hey, remember this."
Wow.
And I was like, "Whoa, okay, something's gonna go on." Like, I had a little spidey sense, what we call it, spidey sense, kind of going, like, "What's gonna happen today? Like, why is this so much different?" Because everything was
The
the
Lord was
exact same.
the Lord was probably speaking to you for sure.
Oh, I 100% believe that. But fast forwarding to that night where it came out, I remember when the trooper said he had eyes on it, and then said he was going to make his attempt. Quiet, and then I remember the words, "I missed my intercept. He's still northbound, southbound lanes." And at that point, I was like, okay, where he was at, where the where I actually intercepted the car, and where the exit where 200 North was at with Kaysville, there was a big stretch. I'm like, if nobody else will sign on or get on the freeway or in these cities, what then? And it was just radio silence. I didn't hear anything for a while, and I just at that point just decided, okay, I'm gonna take the initiative. And in my opinion, and how I treated both these situations, is like an active shooter type situation where serious bodily injury or death can happen to somebody, because on the news we've seen previous reports of fatal accidents with wrong way drivers in that. And so having that in mind, knowing what was behind me, knowing what was, what I was sworn to do, I talked about, there's all this talk about the thin blue line between, unsafe and then the public and all that. And law enforcement kind of helping divide that safety barrier, if you will. Yeah, I just remember I was like, this is what I gotta do. And I went. So it was pretty surreal at the beginning part of it.
Okay. So as you got on the highway and you attempted to line yourself up to intercept the vehicle with that pit maneuver, what exactly was going through your head in that very moment? What did you feel like? Maybe adrenaline wise, like what? I guess my question is, do you even remember, at that very moment, how it felt or what you were
Oh yeah,
through?
yeah, I remember it very vividly. Just like waking up, having a good dream or something like that. Having seen a good ball game. I remember in the video, I've watched that video so many times. In the video, it's so fast. It's so fast. But it felt like 20 minutes for me. Actually being in that driver's seat and going through that. There was a point when I first saw the headlights where I had to swallow that pill of either this is my time to go or this is really going to hurt. One of those two.
I bet.
And so I was like, oh man, like I really had to really accept, like, be okay with dying. And I never thought, being a year on, still trying to figure out what kind of cop I want to be, on the road, and having that experience so earlier on, it was like time almost stopped. And then, trying to get into the position, not having any training on the first one, like I'm gonna think of a reverse pit where the car's coming at me instead of me being behind the car, and I haven't been trained in that stuff either. I was just making sure I could get this guy stopped. And then when I remember making that collision, and looking over my left shoulder, seeing if I stopped him. And I remember seeing the car spin, hit the wall, and it stopped. And I was like, okay, like, I know everybody else behind me isn't, but there was still traffic coming behind me. I remember a couple of semis, a couple like big passenger cars, SUVs coming by. I'm like, oh cow! Like, it became very, very real to me, as far as like life is very short and
Very
valuable.
fragile.
Yes.
So, when you made initial contact with the car, uh, did you feel injured at that point? I mean, did you feel injury to your body, or maybe notice any physical injuries that took place?
I think really what happened on that first one, I was more so in shock and trying to channel my energy into making sure this guy was okay. Because initially, I believe you hear it in my radio traffic on that video, is I'm gonna go check on him. I'm gonna make sure he's good. That was my main concern. I didn't care what happened to me.
Right.
I don't even know if my leg was broken. I don't know if I would have been able to feel it if I was trying to get out of the car, until obviously I couldn't move at that point. Fortunately, that wasn't the case in this one. And, I had that reconfirming feeling and assurance feeling like, okay, yeah, this individual is okay. He's not needing medical aid or anything like that right off the bat. So, that was nice to know that both of us are able to come out of that situation with minor injuries.
And that's the ultimate goal, obviously,
Oh,
when
yeah.
doing a pit maneuver, is to be able to do so in a way that prevents any major injury to you or the driver, is my understanding.
Yeah, I can really speak for any officer. We don't want to take anyone's life. Like, that's the day we have to use the unfortunate tools in our belt, is we dread that day. I still am dreading that day. Will we have to act on that? Absolutely. Because that's what we're here for. That's what we're trained to do, and to go and handle the situations accordingly. So I would do all that training, but at the same time, we still don't. That's something we don't ever want to do.
Right. You're going to put your life down
Yeah.
for others, and at the end of the day, if it's going to be, you or the bad guys going home, it's going to be you going home to your family. It's got to be. But
Yeah.
So did you experience any emotional or mental challenges after the incident? And if so, how long after?
Yeah. I remember waking up the next day, walking down the stairs, and seeing my wife and son in the living room to sit on the couch. And I just remember bawling. Like, my wife would call it ugly girl crying. Like, we were having to do that, like it was deep. It hurt. It was another realization of, like, I almost made, because of what happened, I may not have been able to be with these guys. Like, I wouldn't be waking up right now with them. And all this emotion flashback of everything for a while, for at least the first couple of weeks. Traveling on the highway, I'd be in the far right lane, away from the left side, and any headlights at night coming at me was a trigger for it. And this is a consistent loop that went through my brain, like reliving it every single time that happened. So I'd say it came on pretty fast after the fact, as far as the emotional effect and the trauma that had started to set in, if you will. It came on pretty fast.
So I'd imagine symptom-wise, you probably had anxiety, I'm sure.
Oh, 100%.
Sleep disturbances and nightmares.
I remember my wife waking me up a couple times where I was legit in like a night terror type incident. And the best way I can describe it is, you've seen Wolverine. The it's where he's learning.
It's embarrassing, but I haven't seen Wolverine.
So I recommend it. It's a great show. But the thing with that, there's a scene where he's actually asleep in bed with his wife, and he's having a flashback, a nightmare, because of all the wars and stuff that he's been through. He was having those reoccurring dreams and flashbacks, and he's waking up and he's stabbing the bed with his claws because he's reacting to the intense dream that he was having with it. And it's kind of similar to that. And I believe an American Sniper, Chris Kyle, there's a scene where they perfectly describe what it's like to have those kind of memories kind of flood him back for PTSD and anxiety, just not being in the room. That's where it's that scene where he's looking at the TV. The TV's not on, but it's like a full-on wars going on. All these sounds, noises, smells, everything like that. It's the same exact thing.
I remember
that happens with that. And that's kind of what was happening with me, or starting to happen earlier on. I was like, I didn't know what was going on. It scared me.
So how did your symptoms and the mental state that you were in, how did that affect those that were closest to you, maybe your wife and your son?
There were some really hard times that I'm not proud of. Mainly because my emotions and different things mentally at the time, I was not the husband, I was not the father that I want to be and I strive to be every day. God bless my wife, because she's I joke with her, she hates it. It's just like every time I wake up, you're still there. Like, I know I have at least another 24 hours with you, kind of thing.
She's a strong woman.
She's
it's
so
that red
strong.
Hair.
Yes,
it's the red hair.
It is the red hair. There's something special, and just some of the day-to-day things on how the feelings, the thoughts, trying to overcome the consistent flow of emotion that would come with those memories was really hard to work through. And it actually was my wife that was like, hey, why don't you go talk to somebody about it? And I was raised in a way where, old school, like, guys don't cry, we're tough. You know what I mean? Like, it was one of those things where it's like, yeah, as a guy, my therapy was the gym. When you go to the gym, you lash out your anger and stuff on the weights, and you go home. And it's basically putting a Band-Aid over it, and it's an oozing wound at that point. But
so how far in, I mean, when you decided to seek treatment, when you decided to actually go and talk to somebody, how long was it after the incident that you decided to go get professional treatment or professional help?
Fortunately, with Kaysville Police, we had a in-house therapist at the time. And it was basically like right when I was ready. He definitely gave me that time to kind of have that settling moment, if you will, to kind of get my bearings back underneath me, where I could function a little bit better. I remember, setting up a schedule and going with him, and actually having the support from my wife, and like, hey, yeah, if you need to go, like, let's go, let's get you there. And not even that, like, nowadays, this is one of the changes that we've been able to see through law enforcement. Is the old ways, it was like, oh yeah, that happened to you, rub some dirt in it and get back on shift. Like, mental health was not a big thing back then, which is why there's so many suicides, so many different things with cops and military veterans that are having that. Going in to this, the state actually recognized there was a problem, and they actually mandated departments that they have to utilize or offer up these resources to these officers when they see that there's signs of this trauma happening. And usually that comes up from your peers and from others, like, hey, Brian over here, he's not himself. You're quiet, he's in the corner somewhere, not acting like his normal self. And it's typically when, the bad words that you can hear people say are, no, I'm fine, I'm good. And just keep it very short. They're not fine. They're not good.
So it was kind of, I was going to ask if it was voluntary or an actual requirement through work. So it was kind of both. If they start to notice that there's an issue, it's going to become a requirement. But for you, it was voluntary. You put that foot forward after talking to your wife and realizing that, hey, I've got a real issue here, so I need to seek some help. But
yeah, and it was very fortunate, like I said, to have that resource readily available within our department. And unfortunately, some departments don't have that. They have to go elsewhere to get that help, but it's still there.
Were you given an official diagnosis, like a mental diagnosis? Did they actually tell you, hey, you've got PTSD, or you've got, did they give you an official diagnosis when you were getting therapy?
Yeah. By two different therapists, actually. My in-house therapist was the one that recognized early on that I had textbook PTSD from everything that was going on, symptoms that I was talking with him about, things that he was noticing that I wasn't noticing, because what I thought was the new normal is not normal, and how he knew me prior to the incidents going into it. So I was actually diagnosed with PTSD and anxiety, and the current professional I'm going to right now is, helping me with that anxiety. And it's, I can function. I can get my patrol car, do my job to the T with what the public offers and asks and expects me to do, and not have any issues.
Good.
By getting this help.
Do you remember, maybe by chance, any specific techniques that were used to help you cope with your systems and with your symptoms that you were going through, and your challenges you were facing? Was there any, like some people have EMDR, some people have cognitive behavioral therapy?
Yeah, I did do EMDR and art.
Art.
Yeah, it's similar to EMDR. It's kind of like they've mixed it together, but it focuses on the emotional side of the trauma itself. I had no idea. Like I said, I was raised like you don't talk to anybody about your feelings on any of that stuff. So going through all this, understanding it was kind of like learning Chinese for me. It was just because I don't know what this terminology is, what's this voodoo stuff or all that. So I was like, okay, this is weird. So actually, the biggest thing with this is I had to go in with it with an open mind and actually accept the practices that were going through and that were being taught to me through my therapist. And so being an open mind, doing that, actually was amazing. And going through and reliving some of those things where they actually will trigger, let's take a look at your scene. Let's look at and see what
exposure therapy.
Yeah, what you're doing. What they pay attention to your body, pay attention to, how you're reacting. It's crazy because at some of those sessions, even to now, it doesn't affect me emotionally anymore, but I can still smell like airbag dust. Or anytime I go on a traffic accident and I get the whiff of the airbag dust, both those instances come back.
No.
But it doesn't affect me. I get used to. But yeah, I remember going through doing some of those sessions with the therapists themselves, but at the same time, they gave me additional tools and resources. So they got me a lot on doing some self-meditation Have you heard of the Calm app?
No. Oh, the Calm app on
Yeah.
the phone.
Yeah, on the
Yes.
phone. Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, that has been awesome because it really does help me with my mind as far as if I need to channel something or get my mind really focused and clearing out the negative energy, if you will. Um, it's great. And one of the ones I listen to is How to Make Noodle Soup by Kung Fu Panda.
Huh.
That's one of my
Is
sons.
it one of the storybooks that's in
It's
there?
one of
Because there's like
it's for like the kid meditation. So I'm like obviously a kid at heart.
right.
But yeah, it's literally Poe. Jack Black is it's his voice, but he's going through and he's telling you how to make noodle soup and
So
kind of winding everything down. But it actually like it that calms me down so much, and even just like the soundscape things as far as like brown noise, white noise,
mhm.
some office stuff. There's a couple video game backgrounds that they do that I don't know, I'm a big gamer, so
Right.
there's a couple of things there where I'm like, oh yeah, like it was very personal that allowed me to kind of help go through that meditation process. One thing I talked specifically with my therapist was grounding. You've heard of grounding before?
Yes.
Grounding
kinda
or
Close your eyes and you listen for maybe 5 different noises and
yeah, yeah,
different.
or the doing the rainbow.
That one I haven't done.
So the rainbow one is you start with, you have to verbalize it and look at it. Like, okay, find a red book. What color is the book? What kind of shade is it? And doing that will get your mind more focused on that, kind of bringing your anxiety levels down, trying to understand that stuff. So it's just another way to help you cope through whatever experience or emotion you're feeling at the time. And those two things, as silly as they sound, amazing.
So I did something similar to that where it was like you had to pick 5 colors and 5 sounds.
Yeah,
and
it's the same.
so they didn't necessarily refer to it as the rainbow, but it's interesting that you mentioned the Calm app because I use that religiously in like 2020, 2021, and I still pay for the subscription every year, but I haven't used it in like 2 or 3 years, and it sounds like there's a lot of new things on there that I should probably go check out. But
I recommend it. I mean, if anything, it's a good start for somebody that's trying to understand themselves the best way I can describe it, without having to go into something like super in depth with like, talking with somebody about it. If they just want to just to get away and just not think of anything and just kind of calm down, their thoughts be themselves, I guess pun intended with calm.
mhm.
The stuff there is nice because they're actually trained doctors, therapists. You got Matthew McConaughey on it. If you're a fan
I
of
do
him,
remember his
That-
voice is something
surreal,
calming about
yes.
that voice. I don't know.
Yeah, but there's actual like trained doctors, trained professionals that will actually walk you through calming techniques
Mhm.
on it. If you don't want to pay money for, a therapist to go see in person, and you're afraid to do
Afraid
that.
to or embarrassed to.
Yeah,
or,
it's a good tool, another resource, and that's what my first therapist I talked to was like, you're not leaving my office until you subscribe to this app, like you're doing it right in front of me. And I was like, okay, I'm glad he did,
Nice.
because I use it all the time. And it's actually great for the gym too.
Huh.
Like if you're doing like a high intense workout and you focus on your breathing, just turn that on. You can get some good breathing exercises with that.
I'll have to check that out.
That's nice.
So, if you don't mind me asking, was medication part of your therapy?
Not earlier on. We actually tried to go the route without going into medication, and then it evidently came up to me as my decision. I was like, you can either give it a shot, see if it's going to help, or if it's not. The thing with medication, going into it, you have to be open to going through the learning process of the change, because not every medication works for the right person. Like I know some people that if they have a cold, Dayquil doesn't even do anything to them, or
Right.
like the common stuff that would knock me out keeps the other person up. Same kind of concept with the medication, and that's what I like. For me, being an officer, I deal with that stuff all the time as far as responding to calls, people that are in mental crisis, things that are, they're having that hard time because they're not on their medication or their medication's not working. It's a development to see what medication is going to work for you. It's a consistent growing path with it. Fortunately, I was able to go start the path just to see, because I wanted to make sure that I was good. I didn't want to do anything with the public or do anything that would jeopardize, their safety or my safety, anything like that, until I knew I was, good up here.
Right.
And since I went on to that medication, I don't diss anybody that has any form of medication with that, because if it's going to help you be you and be the person you want to be and you feel normal, by all means.
Exactly.
Do it the right way. But you gotta experiment with your doctor as far as, hey, this isn't working, I'm feeling this. You gotta be, that form of communication has to be very fluid as you go through the check-ins and stuff like that to help.
It's a little off topic. I spoke to a woman the other night who was she was so tired of living her life the way she was living it, and she felt like, medication was the only thing left, but she was so scared to try it. She didn't want to be on it. She didn't want to deal with the stigma of being on it. It was embarrassing to her. And I told her, I was like, look, if you were diabetic, you're going to take a pill, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like your mind can get sick and have issues just like the rest of your body. It's an organ. Your brain is an organ. So
yeah, and like there's all these different kind of chemicals that can be a lack of. That's just like, I mean, you and I go to the gym, we take supplements. It's just like that. It's the additional help for that. There's some things you can't get the full effect from certain foods or whatever. You got to supplement it with that. And I viewed it kind of like in that perspective when I started that path down that, is treating it as a supplement, if you will. It's like, yeah, this is just going to help with whatever chemical imbalance my brain's got.
That's a good way of looking at it.
So that's where my mind kind of went to it, just to accept, yeah, this is good, and then not being ashamed of it. That was probably the next hurdle, as you touched on it. With that lady, she didn't feel like she was, it was embarrassing, and which is fair. It's a real thing. People, you don't want to know, like, oh, my neighbor's on, this pill to make sure he's not crazy or whatever.
More people than you know are on them these days, and it's pretty normal. But I did want to ask, so just kind of staying on track here, not to cut you off, but
no, you're good.
I wanted to ask, when you started applying these techniques that you were learning in your therapy and from the Calm app and things like that, about how long did it take until you started seeing real results and you started feeling like Josh again, like Father Josh and Husband Josh and Officer Delos Santos? How long did that take?
It was steps. It was strides I made. Right now I feel more myself than I have ever felt since then. And I actually did quite a bit of other things myself. And the strides that I made, I had to have a motivator to get me through that hard stuff. So my biggest motivator is my family,
100%.
Like, I would do anything for them. And that was what was at the forefront of my mind, was like, okay, I have to go through this experience, having them in mind of, this is going to be for them. This is going to be for, for my boy to be like, yeah, this is what he needs to see. That's what I want him to remember me as, not as some hard dad that was like really rough and didn't like him or whatever.
Mhm.
You know, I wanted to make sure that he knew that dad loved him, dad loved his mom, and you know, he could come to me and talk to me about stuff. I wanted to still have that trust. And going through it, each stride, I was always checking in with my wife. We had this check in as far as if things were getting too hot, for example, as far as, you know, the emotions, the overstimulation of being in a crowd or family events, if it was too overstimulating where people, because that was a hard time with people,
Bet.
because they unintentionally would ask, like, they generally ask, "Hey, you okay?" Like, you know, I can't believe you did this in the wrong way and all this other stuff, and just having that go back in my brain, and having that additional support, or having that person, if you will, to kind of keep you on track and checking in, really help me with getting through each individual hurdle that I had to go through. And what I mean by hurdle is I went through a couple different emotion effects within myself that was hard to jump over, mainly just because there was a part of me that wasn't wanting to accept it. I believe that some of that was just from, you know, how I was bred. The gotta be the ego, like, you're good, you don't have to do this. I'm not gonna take the treatment, you know. So it's like one of those things where, like, okay, like I gotta nip this in the butt. Remember my why. Remember why I'm trying to get better. Remember all this stuff. What I want for my family to remember me by. And as I did that, and continually had that check in, it wasn't like an everyday kind of thing. It was more of like every couple weeks, a month, just to be like, hey, you good? Like, how's it today? Have you ever heard of the SOS score?
No.
Probably gonna butcher it, but it's SOS, kind of like how you are feeling emotionally and being able to handle a situation. That's your SOS score. So it's like, you know, I'm at a 5 here where I'm in control, but I'm like way out of control, like at a 10 or whatever. So where I can't deal with people. So my wife would ask me, "Hey, what's your SOS?" We're like, "Oh, I'm at 10s across the board." She knows that it's like,
we're staying in this
yeah,
weekend.
we're staying. We're not going anywhere. We're gonna sit here and just kind of help you work through whatever it is that's going on in the brain and kind of work through that. There's times where I was like, "Oh, I'm very confident. I'm at a 10 here, and anything that happens, in my emotions or whatever, was at like a 1. I'm like, good, I can handle it." It's kind of weird, like kind of like bipolar-ish, if you will, if I think about it now. But yeah, it was having that partner that was there, or that person that could help go through everything. It was pretty critical in my recovery coming back.
That's good. So I have a press release I'm going to read from February 9th of 2024, and it's from the Kaysville Police Department. So, on the early morning of Friday, February 9th, 2024, around 1:52 a.m., Davis County Dispatch alerted surrounding agencies to a dangerous situation. A wrong-way driver heading northbound on I-15 within the southbound lanes near Farmington area. Near milepost 328, a Kaysville police officer, Officer Calavai, that's his Hawaiian name, Delos Santos, proceeded to the scene by entering the I-15 via the southbound 200 north on-ramp. As Officer De Los Santos merged onto the highway, he encountered the errant vehicle traveling in the HOV lane. Officer De Los Santos maneuvered across the dirt core area, separating the on-ramp from the I-15, traversed all lanes of traffic, and collided with the northbound Tesla in its front fender area, ultimately halting its course. Officer Delos Santos's vehicle sustained significant damage, and he required extraction by medical personnel before being transported to the hospital with moderate to serious injuries. Meanwhile, the adult male driver responsible for the incident did not receive any injuries, but was promptly apprehended on suspicion of driving under the influence, DUI. To facilitate the investigation, the southbound lanes of the I-15 were temporarily closed, with traffic rerouted off to the 200 north off-ramp and back onto the on-ramp. Authorities estimated the closure to persist until approximately 4:30 a.m. By the afternoon of the 9th, Officer De Los Santos had been discharged from the hospital and was recuperating at home with his family and recovering from his injuries. Notably, this marks the second occasion Officer De Los Santos had successfully intercepted a wrong-way driver, the first instance dating back to April of 2022.
Stupid, right?
So let me get this straight. Just as life was starting to get back to normal for you, you encountered another situation involving the same circumstances on February 9th of this year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Hold on that thought really quick. Let's see another video from this particular incident.
Kilo 31, come to 200 north and shut down the off on ramp.
Kilo 31, copy.
Davis, killed 26, 1050, I got him. 200 north.
10-4.
I need medical. Bad.
Kilo 26, 10-4. Units responding. Kilo 26, are you just south of 200 north?
No, I'm right at 200 north. I'm stuck in my car, I can't get out.
10-4. 608 with a rest area.
Davis, kill 26, notify admin, please.
Kilo 26, 10-4. Units responding on wrong-way driver. Kilo 6, 1050 with vehicle at 200 north. We're getting medical started.
Okay, so what do you have to say for yourself about that one?
Well,
I mean, obviously you were doing your job, which I commend you for. But
yeah, I mean, the same exact thing as the first one. I knew the risk that was out there for the public. I knew what could have happened. Fortunately, before this incident, Highway Patrol developed a new interception technique program and a training before we opened up a new highway on the west side of Kaysville, and we were able to attend that training and learn a safer way to try and intercept this vehicle. What you don't hear in the video is the additional units setting up. There's a slowdown north of 200 north to prevent other traffic coming on. And at this time, all the troopers were way out of position to intercept this vehicle due to this car actually making a U-turn on the highway. So they were out of position, and it was up to the surrounding agencies to assist Highway Patrol in doing that. And fortunately, this training allowed us to get everything set up to where the freeway was going to be able to be shut down for us to actually drive wrong way and do a actual pit maneuver from the rear, driving wrong way with the same car to mitigate any serious injury to officers or the individual in the car. So I remember that stuff getting set up, and then once I was getting up, as you can see, the headlights come up pretty quick when I'm coming up that off ramp, and it was just like muscle memory. It was reaction. Just as I was, it's just like
Same reaction.
same
as the
reaction. If
previous
I
time.
draw my gun to do something, it's all came down to the training stuff. And I remember my partner at the time. He didn't. We were kind of joking earlier, just having a good time, just messing around because he just got his new patrol car. He's one of our newer guys at the time, and he had the giddy face that everyone always gets when they get a new ride. It's like, yeah, this is sweet. And I remember like, oh, don't crash it, bro. Don't do it. And that car that I was in was the same exact car that I handled the first incident. So my car was already
So it's reconstructed.
It was reconstructed, repaired, everything like that. And I remember my assistant chief was like, "Don't do it again." And I was like, "Okay, I'll try not to."
Do you still have that car now?
No, that thing's totaled. It's
I
gone.
I would tell him I want that thing. I've been through two. I would demand it.
Oh, I mean, I got a seatbelt from it. I mean, a seatbelt,
Nice.
a little memorabilia part of it, because I really do have a special bond with that car. But with that, I very much care why I did what I did that night. I didn't. Part of the reason why I went as well as I didn't want my partner to suffer what I suffered through from the first one. I was hoping that we were able to actually do what we had trained, but ramming the car is always a last resort. And it was at that point where if I didn't intercept that car, the deputy and the multiple cars that it was heading towards was going to be in jeopardy. So.
And that was a Tesla. I mean,
It felt like I hit a wall.
You might as well hit a tank at that point. Those batteries are heavy.
Yeah, in the video you can hear that little bit of silence, and I was actually unconscious for a period of time before I got my bearings back and was able to give out the rest of the radio traffic. So, and I don't remember much inside the car.
So just to back up really quick before we get too far ahead. So I would expect one that had dealt with PTSD would often freeze because there's fight, flight, or freeze. And I would expect one would probably freeze in a situation like that because it's literally a mirrored situation from the time before. So why do you think you didn't freeze? Why do you think that is?
I think a lot comes down to just I credit a lot of it to the training that we have to have as law enforcement officers. Is we can't, if we freeze, people die.
Right.
And not to do anything bad or say anything bad about those officers that do have that freeze moment, because it's human. It's been tested by science and everything.
Exactly.
It's something you can't really control. You either fight, flight, or freeze. And in my mentality growing up, I think a lot of it came down to like I have to be the one to do this. I have to make sure that everybody else is okay. I try to put everybody else's feelings, I guess, welfare, if you will, first, mainly just because if I know they're okay, then I can be okay. That's kind of how I've done things with, my family, some of my mission companions that, you've been fortunate to see me around. I'm
gonna put up a picture of your dad. You guys will kind of see where he develops this fight mentality from. He's not a little guy by any means. Got a huge heart, and he's been at it for a long time. But the press release said that you sustained injuries in the second incident. What were they?
I couldn't feel anything from the waist down. I can remember that.
Scary.
And I remember, so Davis County Sheriff's Office, I think a couple months prior to this, they had just got done away with their paramedic program. They used to do a dual paramedic and law enforcement response. Anywho, one of the officers, the deputies that showed up, used to be a paramedic, and he's like, dude, don't move. Like, or you might have a spinal injury, something like that. And in my mind, hearing that, it's like, okay, like, I might be in a wheelchair, or I might, like, my career might be over because of this injury. And I legit couldn't feel anything. I was numb. I remember feeling some pain in my back, and I was like, oh man, like, I can't, this is it. You know, I'm just kind of accepting the fate again, like, oh, I didn't die, but this one really hurt. And like I said, I don't really remember too much inside the car. I don't remember being cut out of the car. Or even making that phone call at that point. I was like, okay, well, this really hurts. And I just remember saying, I'm stuck and I can't get out.
Yeah, you can hear in the video, and you hear in your voice that you were definitely in pain, and it was a definite traumatic situation. The second incident, how did it affect you mentally in comparison to the first one? Did you have the same challenges?
Not as intense as the first one. I still had some struggles, still had a couple of things that lingered for a little bit longer than I would have liked it to. Mainly the anxiety portion of it, of getting behind the wheel again. And unfortunately having that come back, those calls again. One challenge that I made for myself, though, and I give a lot of credit to my sergeant at the time, allowing me to actually respond to those wrong way calls that were not wrong way drivers. The first incident, what I heard from my buddies with Highway Patrol is there were 5 more that weekend that came into our county. And then after that, it was like a consistent call. It was like a suicide threat or like a domestic violence situation where it just came out like, oh, we got a wrong way driver. One's coming from the north end. I remember working one shift where we had one going northbound the southbound lanes, one going southbound the northbound lanes on 2 different highways in our county. Fortunately, there was a ton of troopers on because it was day shift, and they were able to handle those without further incident. It just became so common. We don't understand why there's that huge influx.
I remember, gosh, maybe 2015 or so, I lived in California, and there was a YouTuber that jumped in I don't know if it was a McLaren, some kind of sports car, having some family issues. I don't remember what his name was. Jumped on the 67 freeway toward oncoming traffic and just decided that it was time to end his life. I think there was another situation with a woman that did it as well, and literally just head on took out somebody, blasted them head on, and both lives were lost. And I mean, there's situations like those. There's drunk drivers, people who are under the influence of things, and they kind of don't really know where they're going.
Yeah.
There's so many different reasons it could be happening. I mean, somebody could get spun around from a diabetic, maybe low that they're having, or a health issue.
I've seen a handful of those diabetic episodes, and they're scary. Yeah. They're not there.
One ended up in my front lawn in San Diego. I mean, took out my wall and was upside down in my driveway, and they went low while driving and just passed out, and they were upside down in the driveway, and I was like, oh my gosh, I barely missed our house. But
I guess that's the unfortunate with the medical side of that is it's just as dangerous with it. It's just like someone having an epileptic episode.
Yep.
You know, you don't know what's going to happen, and when it does happen, it's usually pretty bad.
So, as far as treatment goes, did you seek the same treatment the second time around? Or did you seek different, did you have different techniques you were taught to get you back on track? I mean, what did you go through?
I went through the same. I went through the same techniques because I knew that worked for me. I knew the techniques that were actually being beneficial, making me have that progress. I was able to see the progress in myself, and I remember getting a call from one of the retired Farmington police chiefs. He's with a nonprofit organization called Warrior Risen.
Mm-hmm.
I owe a lot of my healing to this nonprofit because of what they did to give back. They have it's a ranch, and
I remember this.
it's surreal. It was like I wasn't even in the city or even anywhere in the States. But I remember I was invited, myself and a handful of officers. It wasn't a big group. Handful of officers at the time for Law Enforcement Week. Each of us had been involved in our own critical incident, or something had happened that caused that trauma, if you will. And really, Warriorism, they're ones that will give. They want to give back to military vets and law enforcement officers, anyone that's been through something traumatic like that. Their whole process at their ranch is to help you heal.
Mm-hmm.
And it was nice because I got to have a little taste of what I would like to do and have that little ranch experience.
Cowboy.
Yeah, the cowboy. The cowboy inside me. My mom would be proud of that.
Maybe I'll throw a picture up. I think I
growing
saw
up
that
from
on
Cheyenne.
Facebook.
Yeah, it was definitely the countryside of me came out a lot more in this one, and it was nice because I got to feed the chickens. Like, they gave you these chores and stuff you had to do, but then after that, it's like, you know, you're out there working on the ranch, you're doing service, doing some of those things, but it's actually very, very relaxing and very therapeutic with where it was at. It was up in Morgan area, and that time of the year was just beautiful. Like, the sun rises, the sun sets. I actually had a crazy storm, lightning storm that happened when we were up there. It was just gnarly, but every night I remember getting around a campfire up there, and we just talk. It was, you know, either talking about incidences, talking about family stuff, whatever it is, and we just talked. And it was just like how you and I are just guys talking, wives are talking amongst each other.
Hey, your family's
yeah,
got to go with you.
Yeah, it was nice because they very much put that around the families of the officers or the military vets that were exposed or involved in those incidents. And so I remember one of the days there, they had a couple of therapists come, and they're trained in that kind of trauma stuff. And I remember doing the same type of art therapy, some of the same practices I've been doing for the past, couple instances. And I remember going through that. I was like, okay, like, I had some legit, like, I could feel the weight come off my shoulders as far as the burden carrying that emotional part of the incident with me.
Mm-hmm.
I had a hard time letting it go because I kind of felt guilty in a way, as far as like, like why did I do this to my family again?
Right.
Unfortunately, they know that I would do it again if I had to. I'm not saying that I do want to do that, but if that came up again, I can see myself doing it without hesitation, like I did in the second one.
And you said, if I remember correctly, I think you told your wife, "I'm in it until you're not."
Yeah,
because she's in that daily battle with you. I mean,
100%.
With you being an officer, being a wife at home, always waiting for your husband to return, and hopefully, God willing, return safely every day to your family.
Yeah.
she's a strong woman to have gone through that twice.
Well, this second one, mm, the healing part of it was more, how can I help my wife? Because it affected her more so like how it was with me in the first one. She was in my position in the second one.
It was PTSD
It
for
was
her, like
very
going through it
much like reliving a bad dream all over again. She actually beat the ambulance to the hospital I was going to.
again. I thought you were gonna say
And-
she beat you,
Well,
like she was that angry. But
I mean, to a point, yes, but so why you put me through that again? No, I remember one. I don't remember going into the hospital. I don't remember anything like that. But I do remember in the second incident just breaking down again in tears because I felt so bad putting her through that again. Because I remember I was kind of trying to wake up, and I remember hearing her voice in my ear, "Hey, sweetheart, I'm here. I'm so proud of you. I'm glad you're okay. We're gonna get through this." Like, very positive, very calm. And I just knew right then and there, I was like, I'm so sorry. Like, I can't believe I made you go through that again. And that was kind of the selfish part, like the selfish, like, guilt. Man,
yeah,
why did you do that again? Like,
because
and
you're sworn in as a father and as a husband. But
Yeah.
you're sworn in as an officer
And
too. And
that at the beginning of the career, that's why we had a very serious conversation, she and I, as far as like, hey, this is a couple career. This isn't just an individual thing. At the end of the day, this is still just a job.
mhm.
Like, I can go work anywhere to provide for my family. I can do that. This is just something I love to do, and it's something that I get an enjoyment of. I don't feel like I'm working when I'm doing this kind of work, but at the same time, I told her in the very beginning we have to be very fluid in the communication, especially in this career. Divorce rates are so high because of lack of communication or lack of commitment, if you will.
Mhm.
And I think because of the consistent communication that we've been having since I started, and knowing that she's 110% in, just as invested as I am, has helped with a lot of these two main critical instances that have happened as far as us. And now we are closer than we've ever been because of these instances and what we've gone through. We've legit trauma bonded together on a whole different emotional level. So having the support or having a person with you is probably one of the more critical things there, which is why now I'm part of our peer support team on our department to respond to instances that have this kind of trauma stuff, so I can be that person that they can actually reach out to and talk to and have a confidential conversation, and not be a therapist, not be a doctor, So I've been transitioning my experiences, my trauma stuff, into how I can better help others in what they're feeling. I've had a couple vets I've responded to that are in a crisis situation, helping them ground and get back to reality from their episode they were having. And it's a surreal experience to actually be able to relate to somebody in an emotional sense, if that makes sense,
Mm-hmm.
And actually
100%.
like be able to tell them, no, you're feeling this is where you're feeling it at, like, this is how tight it is, right? And they're like, yeah. And you see that light kind of show up in their eyes. You're like, oh, he gets it, and there's not some white coat telling me like, yeah, here's medication, take this or whatever.
Yeah.
To make you feel better,
So you're back to work full time. You still serve as a law enforcement officer.
Mm-hmm.
And you do it every day without hesitation, putting your life on the line in the service of others. That's truly amazing. In my book, you're a hero. In my book, you've been a hero for a while. A lot of people watching this channel don't know that you gave up 2 years of your life to serve a mission and teach the gospel of Jesus Christ, and you were the one who baptized me.
Yeah.
So I will always have that emotional connection to you. When I heard about both of these situations, I definitely hit my knees, and I felt for you, and I'm glad you came out and you're okay. Is there any advice that you want to give to the viewers today that might be suffering from PTSD or other forms of mental illness? Maybe even some of your officer buddies, your colleagues that, have that strong, tough mentality that are, suffering inside, and they don't care to let it on.
Mm-hmm.
What do you have to say?
Really, the biggest thing I would say, anyone that's watching, anybody who has had that thought, that doubt, the questions whether or not it's worth it, whether or not if anyone does care, I will be the first one to tell you specifically that if you need somebody and no one else is willing to talk to you about it, you know how to get a hold of me. I will gladly pick up the phone and talk to anybody that is going through a crisis or going through something that is hard, because I've been there. I've held the gun to my head. I've held that suicide part really, really close at times. And it is a very hard thing to overcome by yourself. Don't do it by yourself, especially if you don't want anybody that's a doctor. That's okay. Some doctors, they go through it. They have that experience. I feel you can connect more with someone that can relate to you. And if you're thinking about, is this it? Is this worth it? Is this life worth it? There's so much to this life. Like, it is unfortunate in my career that I've been able to see so many young lives, so many successful individuals, from either being bullied, from saying they're not worth anything, thinking that their loved ones don't love them, or they're having that hard day, or they're trying to become sober from either alcohol or drug addiction, whatever. It's always going to be hard. It's always going to be a marathon, but you never run that marathon by yourself. There's always someone that's going to be in your ballpark. There's always going to be someone in your corner. And if there isn't anybody in that corner, and you don't think that there's somebody there, there is somebody there. Even if I don't know these people that I go out to this in my career, I mean, I don't know these guys. I go out when they're in that crisis. To me, that's why I got into the career, is to help individuals get better, help them with whatever they want to get overcome, get better with. So don't do it alone. There's always, whether it's not a family member, not a closer friend, there's someone like me, like Dave, that will be your advocate for you, to help you through whatever it is you're going through. I've done multiple trainings myself, as far as trying to help my other peers understand, like, hey, the old way of policing is not, like, don't rub some dirt in it and get on with it and brush it off. It's just going to make it worse 30 years down the road. And I've seen the physical effect it takes on, until it takes on individuals holding on to that baggage, that garbage. So the best advice is just talk about it. Find that person. This is my invitation. Like, if you truly don't have anyone to talk to, hit me up. I will gladly have that conversation with you and help you with whatever you're going through, because I rather have you be successful and have a long, rewarding life, instead of having to suffer through and go through all those feelings and guilt and shame or whatever it is you're going through. It's hard to go by yourself. So don't be by yourself. I am in your corner. I know Dave's will be in your corner.
Always.
So if you need help, reach out. And you don't have to reach out to the suicide hotline. Like, a lot of people don't want to do that. Reach out to somebody.
I'm not an officer by any means, but I've dealt with mental illness. I've dealt with a lot of the feelings that this officer discussed today. I'm here. I got 2 ears. I'm ready to listen anytime. My email will be posted on our Fight or Flight Facebook page. It'll be posted in the YouTube video. Our contact number's there. Don't hesitate to reach out. Josh, I really want to thank you for being on the show tonight. I appreciate everything you said. I appreciate all your sacrifice and your service. And this is kind of what the mission of this channel was all about. It was to provide a platform for people to openly speak about what they're going through. And while we care and love women and children very much, they're often the first to speak up. And children, they often get the help they need, and women will speak up and go get the therapy they need. But men will often bottle it up, and they do it till they explode. And one day they're there, and another they're not. And I know that specifically has happened to a couple people I know. So I just want to close with, if you guys like the story today, if you like the content, please like and subscribe. We're going to have a lot more visitors like this, a lot more podcasts, a lot more videos on symptoms, different forms of mental illness. I want you guys to all hang in there. I love you guys very much, each and every one of you. Don't be afraid to reach out. And until next time, hang in there. Have a good night.
I'm far away from better days, but memories keep bringing me back here.